wanted to talk about a topic that has been active in my life in past days, which is related to honesty, saying honestly how you feel, especially when it's difficult, when you don't feel good about other people. And thought about this in some earlier videos as well, talked about nonviolent communication, but still getting reminders of it myself and finding those useful. So thinking it's maybe useful to share them as well here, because it is so easy to think that no, this is not so bad. Like the other person didn't, I didn't like how they acted now, but it's not so big deal, so I don't say anything. And the danger there is that when that repeats, you kind of collect something like take some money out of the bank account of the trust in that relationship, and it starts to show at some point. But when it do that like small slice at a time, you don't notice it so easily. But especially if you're with some person for a long time, like a couple of relationship or long time colleagues, it can really start to deteriorate the relationship and the trust in there, and your willingness to be there. So and I've encountered that personally in like a romantic couple relationships. In a hard way, noticed that 3.5 years can last even by being nice strategy, but at some point something starts to feel less good. I haven't been able to point it there only, and this is definitely not the only reason for the relationships ending, but kind of 3 times there's been about 3.5 years of dating relationship with a person, and that really started to ring some bells that okay, something is not going right, something like seems to be working well for getting good relationships started, but then not keeping them going. And I think this is one key element, and it feels hard at the beginning to say how you feel, but there the nonviolent communication can really help because it puts the threshold down for expressing how you feel, because you know that it's not coming out so violently, it's not typically triggering so much um, frustration or resistance in the other person, and it might, but it has helped me a lot. So I highly recommend to take a look at those methods or seeking out the course if you haven't heard about nonviolent communication. And yeah, like most recently, it was not with a romantic partner, but with another person that I'm dealing a lot with these days. So I really find it valuable that I was able to express, and I also appreciate the other person from being grateful for that, and not like also not going in the same trap of like, oh, sorry, I did everything wrong, but more like, okay, this is how I feel, and this is what I wish, and the other person stating kind of the similar things. So really powerful. That's what I wanted to remind you today, and wish you the relationship where you can dare to say when you don't feel good, and you can trust the other person is there and not escaping, not abandoning you from being really who you are. Yeah, that is super important in many ways. So also when expressing frustrations, but also when expressing who you are, like weird things or those things that you typically don't dare to express to anyone. You can maybe think what those things are for you. What are you ashamed of? What are you afraid of revealing? And what could you perhaps dare to reveal to someone you trust? Or especially if you have any group, peer support group, men's group, women's group, whatever group, if you can become visible with what you are most afraid to admit, or you don't need to start from top of the list what you're most afraid to admit. When you admit something that you feel is scary or shameful, And when you feel accepted in that, being that, showing that, that is really powerful. And what often ends up happening that you actually feel more loved. That people actually love people more when they are honest and vulnerable and showing themselves. Like you can probably find examples of you appreciating other people more when they really want vulnerably express who they are, what they feel, and show something that they don't typically show to anyone. You typically value them for that. And how is it then so hard for us to do that about our own things? So that's the question I want to leave you with today, and encourage you to take maybe not the top of the list, but something like a little bit scary, and consider expressing that someone you like. Well, that can be there, but someone you trust. So I hope there is a person like that nearby, so you can practice being fully yourself, being vulnerable, giving the other person the possibility to walk away or say something nasty, but also trusting that they would do it, or even if they would get scared and temporarily say something that is not so healthy, that they will come back into connection, and that going through that experience make your relationship stronger. And if you do that, let me know if it goes well or ends up in the problems. So curious to hear how things go. Wishing you all the best in honest conversations.